Hello, Good Shepherd and Saints Francis and John. I'm Deacon Mike Lynch with Good Shepherd Church. This week we prepare for the 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time, a reading from the Gospel of Matthew. After he had fed the people, Jesus made the disciples get into a boat and precede him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. After doing so, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When it was evening, he was there alone. Meanwhile, the boat, already a few miles offshore, was being tossed about by the waves, for the wind was against it. During the fourth watch of the night, he came toward them walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. "It is a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. At once Jesus spoke to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter said to him in reply, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." Peter got out on the boat and began to walk on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and caught Peter and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" After they got into the boat, the wind died down. Those who were in the boat did him homage, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." This story comes in Matthew's Gospel just after Jesus had challenged his disciples to feed the large crowds following him themselves. But the disciples focused on how little food they had, 5 loaves and 2 fish. But Jesus does so much with so little food, feeding over 5,000 people with plenty left over. Both that story and this week's story about Jesus walking on water are about faith. Faith in what is impossible for man, but possible for God, and how fragile that faith can be in a world that doesn't focus on faith. This week's story has some subtle hints at the weak faith, even of the apostles of Jesus. As Jesus walks on the water, he assures the apostles that it is actually he who is coming toward them. Peter's response is hardly full of faith. Think of his words. "If it is you," he says to Jesus, "command me to come to you on the water." Sounds like he's testing Jesus. And he quickly becomes frightened, even as he's walking on the water, and sinks. Suddenly, he's calling in desperate faith for Jesus to save him. And while pulling him from the water, Jesus reacts, even to one of his closest followers, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" This story illustrates one of the central messages of the gospel according to Matthew. The expectations Jesus has of his disciples, an expectation of unwavering faith. But of course, Jesus' followers of today also have trouble with belief. I think we want to have faith in God, trust in his love for us, and in the redemption he's offered us through Jesus, the faith we had when we were growing up. But today we see more and more people around us neglecting their faith and gradual falling away from it. Our world is far more secular and self-oriented now, and hardly encouraging of faith. At times it seems that we people of faith are on our own in this culture. But the way to keep the faith is to practice it regularly. As I've said before, read the sacred scriptures, like the gospel stories for Sundays and the days of the week. Use a study Bible to help you to understand the scriptures. When you have a question about our faith, look it up in the Ultimate Catholic Answer Book, the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Pray regularly with your family that your faith in Jesus may increase, that your witness to your belief in him will shine for others to see in what you do and say, so that you too may be in full faith and say, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Here's some family activities to consider relating to this gospel story. As a family, talk about how Christ has called you to follow without fear. It's not always easy. Look for opportunities this week to express your faith, even if you're afraid. Pray before the body of Christ in the tabernacle for an hour this week in preparation for the Sunday Eucharist. God bless you. See you at Mass.